Hey everyone, it's Ian from the Postal Hub podcast here.
And Marek from Last Mile Experts.
And we are the Last Mile Prophets. And Marek, we're going to talk about a topic close to your heart, the Polish CEP market. About a year and a half ago, you and the team at Last Mile Experts put out a market report talking about the state of the market. And I think what's interesting about Poland is it's not the same as every other market. Well, maybe I should let you answer that, why it's different, because the name InPost springs to mind as one of the reasons why. But what makes Poland different to some of its neighbouring countries when it comes to the last mile?
I'd say dynamism. It's an incredibly dynamic market. It's been highly competitive for several years, and probably it's one of the most important test cases for lockers and PUDOs working together with home delivery in the last mile.
So why has it become so competitive? Why, compared to, say, other markets where you might have a dominant player like the local post, or the post has gone into a partnership, or whatever has happened there? So why is it so dynamic, or competitive there?
Several reasons. I would say not necessarily in order of importance, but it's a large Central European market that has been growing fast. Even when there were problems in Europe, recession-related problems, Poland was growing. So it was an attractive market to be in, very close to the powerhouse of Europe, Germany. So for that reason, also important. And very open up until recently to foreign investment. So people wanted to invest, people felt they should be there. And whether they were, the likes of UPS or FedEx or European players, pretty much everybody is in the market. So I think for those reasons, it's highly competitive. It's a relatively big market and relatively developed compared to most other markets in the region.
So when you say you're developed, you mean in terms of e-commerce. So e-commerce is growing and growing and growing. It's not, when you hear from some other Eastern European nations, they talk about e-commerce not being very well developed and there being a hesitance amongst just the regular shoppers to convert to online. They're very happy or conservative, some people might say, when it comes to their purchasing habits. So is that sort of not the case necessarily in Poland? Because there has to be money behind it somehow as well.
Well, I think, Ian, first of all, I was actually referring to the development of the last mile, but you're right, e-commerce is developed. There's a very strong incumbent player, Allegro, in Poland, which I would imagine controls something like half of the e-commerce market. It's incredible. And the player, I think, amongst others as well, has realized how important the last mile is. They've introduced one of the very few successful subscription models called Allegro Smart, which is effectively a Me Too, but scaled down compared to Amazon Prime. So we've got strong e-commerce development, smart e-commerce players, big e-commerce players who understand the importance of the last mile, and an awful lot of competitors, large international competitors in the last mile.
So it's not been left to, say, just the Polish Post or to InPost, we know obviously as being a big player in the last mile in Poland, but the internationals are there as well. I mean, UPS, I think we've discussed previously on one of our videos about UPS being present in Poland and how it's approached the last mile, especially during the coronavirus. What are the other players in that? I mean, is DPD there?
All the big players are there. So you've got DHL. Traditionally, DHL was the first big investor that made things happen. And in my view, they lost the plot because of the B2B focus. But certainly they have been there, they are there. UPS, FedEx, DPD are all there. So basically all the players, what is interesting is historically, one of the other reasons why the market was attractive, when you do a market analysis, you look at the strength of the post. So a market like France would be very difficult to approach because of the strength of La Poste, which has in B2C probably 2/3 of the market via several brands. And that makes it much more difficult. Polish Post historically was weak. It's had ups and downs up until recently. They had a very strong management team. They did a lot of good things. But I think that was the reason why a lot of investors came in. Today, what's happened is you've got a complete turn of the tables, as it were, where, let's be honest, the upstart challenger in the form of InPost, which was, let's be very open, about 5 years ago, or 4 years ago, whenever it was that the acquisition by Advent happened, it was close to bankruptcy. Suddenly has become the dominant player And just to give you an idea, when I left DPD, it was the dominant number one carrier in Poland. Our latest estimates are that DPD is less than half the size of InPost now by volume. Wow.
That's a big change. I mean, we were just talking before we hit record that even since you produced that report 18 months ago, the market has changed again, which seems remarkable in such a short, what is really a fairly short time for the market to change. What are a couple of the quick highlights of things that have changed in Poland in the last mile in the last 18 months?
Without a doubt, COVID has been the single biggest factor that's changed things. So the volume growth during COVID for players with very strong B2C out-of-home capability has just rocketed. So I'd say COVID, continued development of out-of-home, understanding by two very important e-commerce players, which is Allegro that we discussed earlier, and the other one is Empik, who introduced subscription models, which almost always start with out-of-home because of the low cost to deliver. So I would say out-of-home is transforming the Polish last mile, and out-of-home has meant that players who were traditionally second division have become strong first division, with one particular example being InPost, which is without a doubt the king of the castle right now.
Just quickly for us, what are some of the figures with regards to InPost and its parcel locker penetration in Poland?
Well, at the moment, they claim to have over 6,000 and a plan to have about 7,000.
Is this just in Poland? 6,000 just in Poland?
So if
and Poland has a population of, what is it, 30-something million?
37, 8 million.
Right.
So it's really very strong. It's way above our last mile experts' minimum viable level of lockers. And if you compare Poland being less than half the size of Germany and having a similar number of lockers, that's quite impressive.
It does paint a real picture. One quick thing before we finish off. You and I have had conversations in the past. We may have even written about the possibility of Amazon entering the Polish market with gusto, shall we say. Because currently Amazon is in Poland. In particular, its fulfillment centres and things like that. So what could be happening there?
My understanding was they should have already been here. And I think it's probably COVID-related delay rather than anything dramatically changing. I would be surprised if we don't have a strong Amazon representation by the end of this year. Probably, I would imagine, via third-party delivery agents. But I think we'll have a proper Amazon website because today it's run through Germany and it's a bit of an ersatz. But I think they're going to come in. But the other interesting one, and this will really hotten things up, is Alibaba, who are apparently also looking at the market.
Looking at getting into the last mile in Poland.
Indeed.
Interesting indeed. Interesting to see because I've been looking at getting a foothold in Europe, the Chinese e-commerce giants. So interesting to see what happens there. So,
well, we can actually ask Rafael about this because guess what? One of the partners, I was ordering something on AliExpress, and guess what? Lockers were one of the preferred options.
That could be a topic that we cover on the 24th of June at 3 p.m. Central European Summertime. Look for the link below on how to register for our webinar that we're running on delivery, how COVID has affected delivery, customer preferences in the last mile, environment in the last mile, and whatever else we can come up with in a very packed 1-hour webinar featuring InPost's CEO. Check below for details on how to register. Marek Różycki, thanks for being part of the Last Mile Profits today.
Thanks, Ian. Thanks, everyone. I think we may want to upgrade our report to show the changes. If people are interested, please write to us. And if we have enough people interested, then you get a freebie upgraded report.
Well, there you go. Comment below or contact Marek. Thanks, everyone. See you next time on the Last Mile Profits.
Hey, everyone. Hope you enjoyed this episode of the Last Mile Profits.
Make sure you subscribe, hit the subscribe button, and also the notifications bell so you get a notification every time we add a new video to this channel. Look forward to sharing more stuff with you on the Last Mile Profits.